week's chapter of One Piece, Doflamingo is getting smacked by the will of D. Yes, my friends, we are finally done with all of the backstory, with Rosinante being killed and Law making his grand escape, and it looks like it's time for him to get his grand revenge against the Man of String and Pink Boas. This was a really exciting chapter. It was also a very simple chapter. It was basically a setup for all of the big final battles which are getting ready to take place. But I think the most important thing about this week's chapter is Law versus Doflamingo, because it's really exciting and it's not exactly a one-sided fight. At first it almost seems like Doflamingo is going to have the upper hand, but as the battle is going on, Law is constantly reminding him about the will of D, Monkey D. Luffy, telling himself that he is a D, and this is really starting to get under Doflamingo's skin. And by the end of the chapter, Law finally hits him with a badass technique known as the injection, where he literally makes this like surgical slash and goes right through Doflamingo, and you can tell this really caught him by surprise. And it's the first real big hit that Law has actually got against Doflamingo, and it's just so freaking exciting. But the other parts of the chapter, like I said, it's basically just going around to Dressrosa, who's fighting who, Frankie versus Senor Pink, Zoro versus Pika, I think it's Cavendish going up against Gladius, Kyros going up against Diamante, who I feel is just probably one of the most appropriate battles of the entire series. If anybody's going to fight Diamante, it's going to be Kyros. And Kyros is a hard bastard. This guy has been running around with one leg, and it has not been tripping him up at all. And it almost looks like Diamante is getting ready to use his flag abilities on the ground, which will make it really hard for him to stand. So this is going to be a really intense battle, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it. And I think that's really surprising, because it's not too often they give us like a side character battle, which looks like it's going to be just exciting as the one from the main characters. And of course, Luffy. Where's Luffy? What's Luffy going to do? Well, I think it's all eventually going to lead up to the moment where Luffy is going to run into Law, Doflamingo again, and he's going to help out in the battle, because as much as I would like Law to be the one to defeat Doflamingo in this final arc, just because how it would be appropriate in terms of the story, it's going to be Luffy. At least Luffy's going to get the final blow when he comes in and helps finish him off. At least that's the way I see it. If they don't do that, then props to the author for doing something that I did not expect whatsoever. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Just a very simple setup chapter with a little bit of action. The flashbacks are done, and we are finally back to the Dressrosa arc. So what's the rundown on this week's chapter of One Piece? Really exciting stuff. I'm so glad that we are finally back to the main arc. That's not to say that the flashbacks were bad. In fact, I think the flashbacks were handled really well, because they could have really dragged out those final scenes with Rosinante and Doflamingo, but they didn't. They kept them really quick, real concise, and they give you a good understanding of what's been going on in Doflamingo's world and in his past. And it's all come to the present in this final battle in Dressrosa, which is just exciting. I loved the artwork this week too, and I'm not really too big on like the artwork of One Piece, but that final panel where Law hit him I thought was really cool, and I also love that one huge panel where they just show you all the different fights which are going on in the Dressrosa arc. Some of the fights that I'm really looking forward to seeing, I've already mentioned Kyros versus Diamante, but I think Zoro versus Pika is the one that I'm also looking forward to the most, next to Law, Luffy, Doflamingo, and that's just because Zoro's always awesome, but just the fact that he's fighting against a massive stone golem swordsman is perfect, because, you know, his whole shtick is that he wants to be the best swordsman in the world, and he's already mentioned that to him, and this is like the perfect opportunity to test out his abilities, because not only is he going to be fighting his sword, but he's going to be fighting his stone abilities. He's literally going to have to chop this guy up into small pieces and rubble, and I can't wait to see how that's going to happen. Frankie versus Senor Pink is just an insane battle. You know, it's one of those like just really weird battles of One Piece, but one that I think I'm really going to appreciate when it's done. And they're basically just continuing to beat the crap out of each other, just continuously like suplexing each other left and right, and I just think that's really funny. And I'm really glad to see that like all the main members of Don Quixote's family are still going to have a part in this final arc. It looks like everybody's going to have someone to fight against, and I don't know if this is like a revelation or not. I don't know if they brought this up earlier, but I think it's pretty interesting that Dellinger is actually a half merman, in particular a half fighting fish merman, and that makes sense with his design with the whole bull horns on his hat. Maybe those are actual horns and we don't even realize it, and I'm not really sure how the high heels come into play with the whole fighting fish thing, but, you know, One Piece, they can get away with this shit. Literally looks like they do acid every chapter and we just accept it. But that's what I love most about One Piece is the weirdness and the amazing action and the surprisingly emotional story, especially with Law and Doflamingo. I think it was really effective how they cut from the flashback immediately to the battle. So this was a really effective chapter of One Piece that you should definitely check out if you're a fan of the series. It had good artwork. It had badass action with Doflamingo versus Law. There was a little bit of humor in the middle, and they're getting ready to set up the final battles of the Dressrosa arc. Get excited, guys. From this point on, I think we're going to have a lot of really exciting action. This wasn't a perfect chapter. I would have liked maybe a little bit more to happen, maybe a little less focus on seeing what's going on in Dressrosa, but it's a good reminder of where things are and what things are going to be going down, especially after the end of that flashback. So I'm going to give this week's chapter a 4 out of 5. Really kick-ass stuff. Check it out for fans of One Piece and of Law and Doflamingo. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and like the video. Before you go, please tell me what you thought about this week's chapter of One Piece. What did you think of the battle between Law and Doflamingo? And what are some other battles that you're looking forward to seeing in the rest of the Dressrosa arc? Remember, guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here and by checking out our YouTube page. You guys can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And before I go, I just want to give a quick shout out to a video that I just released, which is the longest video I have ever worked on. It is my Naruto end of series overview discussion. It's nearly an hour long. So if you guys are interested, pop a squat and listen to me talk about Naruto for an extended period of time. It's mostly just me rambling, but hopefully you'll get something out of it. There will be a link for that at the very end of this review. So thank you guys again for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000 out.